Hi, everyone. So, being that this is the last main episode of season three, just wanted to add a little short introduction to this, as I did last year. There will be an extra bonus episode later this week about Schacter, but this is the last main episode of season three before Rosh Hashanah. So, to add a few comments. So, first of all, and I've said this a bunch of times in the podcast, but thank you for everyone for the tremendous support. The podcast is just about at 300,000 total downloads. So I'm just really surprised by that and surprised by, how many people listen. I'm constantly stopped by people in the street, in shul, and in emails and many comments and messages. So people definitely are listening, and you're listening if you're listening to this, and I appreciate that you are doing so. Thank you to all who subscribe to the podcast. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so and rating and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, as well as rating it on Spotify. Thank you for all the support, the feedback, the comments, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the guest suggestions, and so on. A lot of the guests really are due to, listener suggestions. It's not, I don't know all these guests or books, or I don't have a connection to them. People make connections and just email me. So, please continue suggesting guests. If you have a particular guest, please let me know. I also appreciate the feedback, constructive criticism, and try to incorporate, as much as I can, as much as possible into the episodes. Thank you also to the sponsors of the episodes. A special thank you to Gluck Plumbing for sponsoring the Shop Says Fee series and all the other episodes that they sponsors, but as well as to the other sponsors of episodes as well. And if anyone wants to sponsor an episode, so I have over 30 episodes recorded already. Many more are planned. So if you want to sponsor an episode and you're interested in a specific guest, a specific type of guest, a specific topic, just reach out to me, email me, svarmchatter@gmail.com, and we can discuss it. Or if you're just interested in supporting the show monetarily in any way, you can also email me. Or either way, if you want to sponsor an episode or just something less, the website, we now have a website, svarmchatter.com. There's a sponsor button on there. So the website has, first of all, there's a website now, so svarmchatter.com, where you can get all the episodes. There's a search feature there, which is nice. You can search an episode if you want a particular guest or topic. You can search on there. There's a couple other features on there. You're going to be adding more things to the website. You can access all the tweets, and there's some other things on there as well. And like I said, we'll be adding things later. I would mention the Shop Says Fee series. So I know from people that I heard from, it was a major hit. People really enjoyed it. As I mentioned, that maybe I would come back and add some more episodes. I think it's 15. I think it's kind of covered a lot of things, but there are others may add to that eventually and kind of add to the series. But that's not in the plan specifically. But there are some that I may look to add there. But I know people did like a series, so I'm working on a new series, a forthcoming series. The series will be on Spanish Jewry. So the origins of Spanish Jewry, Muslim Spain, Christian Spain, the riots of 1391. Inquisition, 1492, and the expulsion, post-expulsion, Moranos or Conversos or New Christians, whatever you want to call them, and many other things, the Svarim, the Gedolim of Spain, the poetry and Piyutim. There's just a lot of things. So a couple episodes recorded already, working on some more. So just throwing that out there. Also, if anyone has additional series ideas, but not only series ideas, also guest suggestions. If people have given some series ideas, but it helps if there's also guest suggestions for that specific series that you have. But feel free to email me again, svarmchatter@gmail.com. And again, just with any topics of what you like, now that Yom Tif, like with this episode here on Selichos and the forthcoming one on Schacter, there's going to be things on Sukkot. So if that's something that you like that there is things related to whether it's a book or history, or just again, the more feedback I get from listeners, I can figure out what people want, to the best possible, what people want to hear and what they're enjoying or not enjoying, or what I can do better, and that kind of thing. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening. If you're listening to this, and if you listen to other episodes, wherever long you listen and subscribe, I appreciate it. And I want to wish all of you a ksiva chesima tova and a good gebench diyar. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Sfarim Chatter podcast. On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be joined once again by Rabbi Dr. Jacob J. Schacter, who is University Professor of Jewish History and Jewish Thought at Yeshiva University. And we will be discussing the newly published Koran Selichos, Minhag, which features his introduction and commentary. So thank you, Rabbi Dr. Schacter, for joining me once again.
It's a pleasure, of Nachi, to be with you. It always is a pleasure. I look forward to an interesting conversation.
Okay, so how did you decide to work on Selichos and to write this lengthy introduction with commentary?
What happened was that I received an email from Rabbi Reuven Ziegler, who is in charge of publications for Koren, about 3 years ago, inviting me to work on this. I was not planning on working on Selichos. I've been working on other things. But this invitation came, and I was machshav it a great deal. I have a great deal of respect for Rabbi Ziegler. I've worked with him in the past. I was very, very honored that of all the people he could have asked, he asked me. And I said, yes, absolutely, right away. I will put aside what I'm doing, or I'll add this to my list, and I will devote the time and attention to it. Took a little bit of a while for them to raise the money and to begin the project. And once we got the green light and we're ready to go, I sat for many hours. This was one of the major foci of my COVID parsha. And I sat and I worked on the commentary. And then I started writing the introduction. And as you probably imagine, one thing leads to another, leads to another. And I turn around and have an 80-page introduction. I wanted to focus on the themes of the Selichos. And I was very grateful to Koren for giving me reshus to publish the whole thing, because after all, this is Mayrich, the Sefer makes it a little bit heavier. And they could very easily have said, just be mitzamtzem and just give us, a couple of pages. But I really took the time to develop this, and I consider this to be an important contribution. And also the commentaries themselves. They're not 3, 4, 5 lines. Some of them are, but many of them are a page. And I'm nervous because people are going to learn to say the Selichos and they're going to get sidetracked. So I'm hoping, my goal is for them to pick up the Selichos an hour before and take a look at it, and read it and learn it, and not get sidetracked when they're actually saying the Selichos. So this was a response to an invitation that I found to be very meaningful and one that I couldn't turn down.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll discuss more of the introduction, which, like you said, it's basically its own kuntras almost in the front of the Sefer. So, I mean, why did they approach you, like you said, to work on this? And did you work on other works of tefillah before?
Well, you'd have to ask Rabbi Ziegler and the powers that be at Koren, what was the minea, what caused them dafka to ask me. I must say that I didn't ask him that question. I was just so thrilled to get the call or get the email that I didn't say, vas epis, why did you choose me? I was deeply honored and continue to be deeply honored. But I have done work before, and I think maybe what motivated the Koren leadership to ask me is because of the work that I did on the kinos. I sat for many years with Rabbi Soloveitchik in Boston, and I got the tapes. I was commissioned by the Torah Rav Foundation to put out a book on the Rav on Kinos, The Lord is Righteous in All His Ways, which I did. It took me many years. And then Koren with the OU published Koren Masoras Harav on the Kinos based on the work that I did. So it could be that was the consideration that they had to ask me, Gzeira Shava Kinos Selichos, to ask me to work on the Selichos as well. I had also worked a little bit on tefillah before. My major academic focus is Rabbi Yaakov Emden, and Rabbi Yaakov Emden wrote a sefer called Luach Eresh, which is a parish on the Siddur. He put out a parish on the Siddur, Rabbi Yaakov Emden. But this was an additional parish, more grammatical on the Siddur, and I put out a new edition together with Reb David Yitzchaki and Reb Bumbach. And so I do have a shtickle interest in things relating to tefillah, but I don't think that was on the radar screen of Koren when they invited me. I think the Iker, it was the Kinos work. And then once again, I'm really very, very honored that I got this invitation.
Yeah, and I guess I can ask you later if Rabbi Yaakov Emden ended up in this Selichos at all. Any quotations from him? But so there's a number of other English Selichos, of course. So what? Let's just talk broadly speaking about your Selichos now. This newly published Selichos. Like what is, I don't know if the word is unique, but what is new? What is different? What did you try to do and co-run together with this Selichos?
Well, first, I would like to pay my incredible respects to Sarah Daniel, who translated the Selichos into English. Her translation is extraordinary. It's a whole entirely new translation. She understands Selichos very well, which is Lav Milsa Zutra Sihi. That's not a simple matter. Part of the reason why I hope this will be welcomed is because it'll open up Selichos. It's like the Kinos, it's a Sefer HaChasam. It's very complicated, a lot of significantly powerful and complex poetry. So she mastered that. And she also writes English with great beauty and sophistication and elegance. And she was able to translate these Selichos in a most magnificent way. So I think this is a very significant and important highlight of our edition. I was not involved in her translation. I'm not holding where she's holding in translation. She's totally a mumche in this area. So whatever she translated, I accepted. There were, I would say, maybe as I was working through it, maybe there were 30, 40 places where I had a shtikale ha'ara that I drew to her attention. Sometimes she was makabel, sometimes she was not makabel, but she was really the Rashki Bahag of the translation, and I'm very proud to be associated with her in this volume. In terms of my own contribution, I think the introduction, as you mentioned before, is v'mizuk dachaticha ruya lehischabe. This is it's a shtick arbit, and it outlines various themes. And I felt that it would be important to try to highlight some of the major themes in the Selichos, so people understand the larger picture of what we're trying to accomplish. And then there are 100 Selichos in this volume. This is minaglita. And I commented on each one of them. And my avoda was what not to comment on. You know, every line there's what to say. So here I try to limit myself to 5 or 6 comments per slicha. And I think what makes them interesting is as follows. First of all, the sources that I use, you'll find the modern sources, you'll find Rabbi Soloveitchik, you'll find the Satmar Rebbe. I felt that it was really important to cast my net very widely. And also traditional sources, you know, Midrashim and Gemaris and Rishonim and also academic sources, especially when it came to the section about the akeida. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that. My training is both as a ben yeshiva. I have smicha from Torah V'das. I have a PhD from Harvard University in Jewish history. So I try to bring my worlds together in the work that I do, and I think that's what also makes this commentary unique. Maybe I don't know if it makes it interesting, and hopefully will arouse people's desire to read it. I would also add one more thing, if I may, in terms of my decision to what to comment on and what not to comment on, which also I think is a touchstone of this commentary. There's a lot of Asham Bagadnu in the Selichos. There's a lot of Oive Esmir Rabbeinu Shalom, ich ben agornished, ich ben gora gornished. I'm a chayte, paisheya, I'm a nothing. And I try to steer away from those parts of the Selichos. I try to focus on the upbeat Selichos. You know what, Rabbeinu Shalom, I may be a chayte, but I feel close to you. I have faith in you. You're going to help me. Adheina zarunu rachamecha, v'leya zavunu chasadecha. And so I'm looking to you to help me. I need help. I need you to pick me up. I need you to give me chizuk. And Baruch Hashem, there's something called the nitzchias of Klal Yisrael. I try to focus on the positive elements. I want people to walk into shul groggy, sleepy, tired at 6:30 in the morning and pull out the slichas and not feel beaten up. like I got out of bed. I came to shul. I'm in shul. Give me a shtickle of break. I know I have work to do. We're holding already by Selichos. We're holding by Rosh Hashanah, Aseres Yemei Teshuvah. I have work to do. But you know what? Hug me, carry me through, give me chizuk. Those are the kinds of comments that I focused on in the Selichos and tried to develop the optimism, the positive. So I think that's also a hallmark of this commentary that I hope will arouse interest and chizuk on the part of those who will read it.
Okay, so we'll discuss some of the things that you discussed in the introduction. I'm going to take a little bit of out of order. I just wanted, there's something that comes up a little bit, a few pages into the introduction, is when does Selichos begin? We should just discuss that. I think this is something you discussed, and this year we have a bit of a longer Selichos with Rosh Hashanah on Monday. So maybe you want to discuss a different minhagim. It's something you do discuss in the introduction.
Yes. So I'm sure that your learned listening audience knows that there are many different minhagim, and some of them are less well known. So, for example, the Rambam and the Gaonim say that it's only Aseres Yemei Teshuvah. The Selichos is only said Aseres Yemei Teshuvah, and the Ran in Rosh Hashanah brings 3 different minhagim, and the second one is also, it's only done during Aseres Yemei Teshuvah, like the Gaonim. The Ran, interestingly, and it's a fascinating Ran, Rabbeinu Nissim, 14th century Spain, mentions that even within Spain, it's not like there's a minhag Ashkenaz and a minhag Sfarad, but even within Spain, he says Barcelona, Beferish, Barcelona is Chaf Hei Elul. Chaf Hei Elul is Yom Shenivra B'Hai Ha'olam, because if Adam Harishon ended up being created on Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Haras Olam, in terms of the creation of Adam Harishon, so the creation began, Brias Ha'olam began on Chaf Hei Elul, and in others, he says, is Rosh Chodesh Elul. I think that's actually the minhag Sfarad today, is to start saying Selichos already on Rosh Chodesh. So those are the most famous ones. Minhag Sfarad today, which is cited by the Ran as Rosh Chodesh. Barcelona's Chaf Hei Elul. Girona, which is not far from Barcelona, is Aseres Yemei Teshuvah, like the Gaonim. Today to go from Barcelona to Girona is an hour by car, and they have different minhagim, and they're both in the northeastern part of Spain. The Avodraham says it's the 15th day of Elul. The Machzor Vitri says it's the Motzei Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. And then we have minhag Ashkenaz. The Ramah says it's Motzei Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. But if Rosh Hashanah is on a Monday and a Tuesday, it's the previous Motzei Shabbos. So one of the questions that I pose is, where does this come from? So given the fact that there are so many minhagim, and minhag Ashkenaz, which is the one that is followed by Ashkenaz, like this year Rosh Hashanah is a Monday and a Tuesday, so it's not the night before, 2 nights before Motzei Shabbos, it's the previous Motzei Shabbos. So vos epis Motzei Shabbos, vos epis the previous Motzei Shabbos. So there are a plethora of minhagim. The 2 that are most common are the one that I just mentioned for minhag Ashkenaz, and minhag Sfarad is beginning with Rosh Chodesh Elul. Who says it on Tezvav Elul? Who says it on Chaf Hei Elul? Does Vesach nicht? There are also other more convoluted, complicated ways how to make a cheshbon to figure out how much Selichos to say, how many days do we say Selichos, but those are the 2 most common ones.
Okay, so now I'll pull back. I just wanted to get that, just even though, like you said, that's a little bit further into the introduction, I just wanted to discuss.
Okay, it's fine, the cover gobble.
Yeah, so what would you say the central, you mentioned a little bit before, but the central, I don't know if the word is purpose, the central notion, I think is something used of Selichos, of these Selichos, overall.
The central purpose of Selichos is to prepare ourselves to face the Rabbeinu Shalom for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur mitzad echad are Yomim Tovim. They're included in the Parsha Ve'elu Ma'adei Hashem. And we consider them to be Yomim Tovim. There's a beautiful Yerushalmi that talks about, mentions that Eza Uma K'umazu, all their umos, when they face a judgment, they're nervous and they're panicking and they're anxious and they let their hair grow and they let their nails grow and they don't care what they look like. But Yisrael Einam came. But we get pitstun. We buy a new suit. We buy a new dress. And the Yerushalmi goes so far as to say, "V'oichlim v'shoisim usmechem, yoidim shakadosh baruch hu yasolem nisim." It may only take a miracle. It's not mukhrach that we deserve it. But oichlim v'shoisim usmechem. So mitzad echad, these are Yom Tovim, but mitzad sheni, and I think we accept this as the more common sense of Rosh Hashanah. We call them Yom Nairoim. We call them days of war. These are, the Gemara says, Sifrei Chaim v'Sifrei Meisim Suchim Lefanav. We don't say Hallel, says the Gemara. Why don't we say Hallel? Gemara in Erechan on Daf Yud. Why don't we say Hallel? We should say Hallel. All of the criteria for Hallel, for the recital of Hallel, are met when it comes to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Isur Malacha and so on. So we should say Hallel. No, but the Gemara says it's not Shayach. Sifrei Chaim v'Sifrei Meisim Suchim. And the Rambam in the Parish of Mishnayos, in Rosh Hashanah, the Rambam talks about that we're nervous and ema and yira and reses and concern and worry and pachan and yira and mora. That's the Nesana Toikev Kedusha Sayayim Miyichya Miyamas. This is serious. And then we have a whole list of the Nebuch, the Miyamases. We don't have a list of the Miyichyas. Miyichya is one option, very nice. Umiyamas then fangtzachon, a whole list, the whole reshima of how you get chas v'sholem. And we say that, and that's a central part of the Yom Nairoim davening. Originally, it was only said on Rosh Hashanah, but then it was felt to be so representative of the feeling, the ethos of the day, that it was introduced later on Yom Kippur as well. And so we need to get ourselves in the proper frame of mind. And so Selichos is an opportunity to help us prepare, to appreciate the challenge and to appreciate the blessing. Mitzad echad, the challenge of what it means to enter into a Yom Hadin. And second of all, and that's what I want to highlight, is to appreciate the gift that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us. We're not alone in this. Rebbeinu Shalom takes us by the hand. Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be successful. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to become closer to him. And this is an opportunity and a venue to be able to develop that feeling as well. So to me, that's the ikar. What's the central repeated constantly is the Yud Gimel Midas. Hashem Kel Racham V'Chanun. Erech HaPayim V'Rev Chesed V'Yemes. Yeah, I know I say Hashem. But the ikar focus, the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim. And that's also something important for us to realize and to appreciate and to internalize that we're going into the Yemei Hadin not alone. We're going into the Yemei Hadin with the Rebbeinu Shalom with us at our side.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to ask you. That's something that you discuss. You start your introduction with something that Selichos, we get it right away from the first night and just keeps going. Is did you give Midas Harachamim, right? The 13 attributes of mercy, and then we constantly saying that we say Kel Melech Yoshev, and then we're coming Hashem. This is again and again. So this is something that I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more on. This is how you start your introduction and you really discuss this.
I think that this is the central focus of the Selichos, and it's not only in the places where we actually recite Hashem Kel Racham V'Chanan, but I outlined 4 or 5, 6, 7 different places throughout the Selichos where we make reference to this, that Hashem is the kind of a Hashem who is Kel Racham V'Chanan. Even without saying the words, we recognize it. And the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, and we refer to this in the introduction to the Yud Gimel Midos, the Gemara says that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that Kozman Shi Yisrael Chotim Yasu Lefanei Kaseder Hazeh, and Hashem said He's going to be Moichelas. Hashem gave us the blueprint. Hashem gave us the nusach. Hashem said, here's what you got to do, and it's going to be okay. Clearly, He wants us to succeed. He doesn't, chas v'shalom, want us to fail. Hashem wants us to succeed. He handed it to us on a silver platter. And that's why it's so central, and that's why it's so important, and that's why it's repeated over and over and over again.
Okay, so then you do discuss, besides for, like I just mentioned, discussing the Gimel Midas in depth, you discuss a number of themes. You mentioned this earlier, a number of themes that come up, that recur, and that are underscored, I guess, throughout the Selichos, starting with the akeida, zechus, avos, tziduk, hadin. So I don't know if you want to discuss some of them and work through some of them, and just mention, obviously not go through the whole introduction, but
Right. I want people to buy the book, so I'm not going to give everything away. Even though in Zolsvissen I don't get any royalties, I have no negias. No financial negias in this, but I do have Olam Habadik and negias. The more people who I could be geirin to come a little closer to the Rabbanu Shalom, the more meaningful it will be for me. So let's start with the akeida. The akeida also is very important. We know how important it is for Rosh Hashanah. The akedas Yitzchak is repeated all over and over and over again. In the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, there's a whole focus on zechus and shofars. There's so much about the akeida, and we blow a shofar. It reminds us, as the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah reminds us of the shofar of the akeida by akedas Yitzchak, and this is very special. And the akeida is a source of incredible zechusim for us throughout all the ages. Even in Kinnis, we said. A number of weeks ago, we talk about how the Avram Avinu comes to the Rabbanu Shalom and says, "No, in the zechus of the akeida, I want you to save my children." The akeida was extremely, extremely important, and it's very important in Selichos. And when we get to the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, there's actually every single day has an entire slicha called an akeida. Every single day, there's a whole slicha, not just the references here and there bichlal to the Maisa of the akeida, of which there are many, but there's a whole slicha devoted every single day. It's devoted to the akeida. Clearly, that is so central. I would like to highlight in my introduction, in my commentary, when I'm analyzing the akeida, I point out something very interesting, and this I got from my academic scholarly work, and that is, it's interesting that in the Torah, the ikar focus, the main player is Avram Avinu. Yitzchak is very passive. Yitzchak says two words, Ayeh Aseh La'ila, and Avram says, don't worry about it, Meged Fighter. And Avram is the central focus is Avram Avinu. Yet, we know this is not called akedas Avram, it's called akedas Yitzchak. And as time goes on, in the Midrashim already, we find a shift. And we find much more of a highlight being placed on Yitzchak's role. And when we come to the Selichos, the Unzura Selichos, which are medieval Ashkenaz, Yitzchak sometimes even plays a more significant role even than Avram Avinu. And the point that I make here, and I quote the references, is that during the Hadrianic persecutions, Claudius won the Nebuch, the terrible persecutions, and Jews are Nebuch being killed, they're identifying with Yitzchak. They're identifying as the victims. They're identifying as the ones who Nebuch are the ones who are being slaughtered. And so they're looking for precedents. They're looking for paradigms. And for them, Yitzchak is the go-to. And when we come to the 12th century, after the Crusades, in the Crusades, Nebuch, there were a lot of Jews, Nebuch, who were killed, who actually killed one another. They killed themselves. I mean, it's a pachad what went on during the Crusades. So to find chizuk, they come to Yitzchak, and they're actually midrashim that are really developed later on in the Selichos, where they talk about the afer of the akeida, the afer of Yitzchak, that he was mamish burned. And there's a medrash that says that he was burned, and that's pshat in the second bracha in the Shemona Esrei, Baruch Hashem mechayim mesim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechayim mesim of Yitzchak. And the Torah doesn't say that. Torah says that the last second, the Malach says stop, and then Avram stops, and then Yitzchak gets off and goes, and Avram goes here, and he goes there. But the Medrash says he was mamish killed, he was mamish burned. And that, to me, resonates with the Crusades. And so therefore, we find this shift. And I think the only way we can understand this emphasis, this unusual emphasis, this original emphasis, is to recognize the historical context in which first the Midrashim and then later on our Selichos are being written, and our slichos are being recited. They're in a moment now. They are addressing a historical moment. They're in the 12th century. And this is what they had to deal with. And this is the chizuk that they wanted to give to their co-religionists. This is what Klal Yisrael needed now. The zechus of Yitzchak. The zechus of Yitzchak should help us. We're Yitzchaks. And it's not just we're Yitzchaks. After all, Yitzchak was Mechaya Mason. After all, Yitzchak did get off the Mizbeach. But Nebuch, in one of the Crusade Chronicles, it says, what Yitzchak was a bar hachi. Yitzchak lived. There are so many who didn't live. It's so much stronger, so much more powerful than Yitzchak. So Yitzchak needs to stand for us for something, and this is a very important aspect of so much of the theme of the akeida references in the Selichos.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more later on. You have, in the introduction, you have more themes about derision of Christianity and other things. And you mentioned the Crusades. I'll also mention for the listeners that are familiar, those that aren't familiar, I recently did a podcast episode with your colleague, Professor Ephraim Kannervogel, about the kinnos for the Crusades. And we discussed a lot of the Crusades and the kinnos that were composed. And like you said, the Selichos here is something that you discuss as well. So there's also another big theme here that you discuss is zechus avos. So that's another one.
Yes, zechus avos is we mention over and over and over again the zechus avos. We ask Hashem to remember the zechus avos, and we ask Hashem to constantly focus on the zechus avos, and it's a repeated theme throughout the entire Selichos. The zecher chazdei avos. That's a major central theme for us, and we mentioned Zachar le'Avram liYitzchak liYisrael avadecha. We mentioned this over and over and over again. And we understand that we ourselves necessarily are not ra'ui for the brachos that we want, but there is such a concept of zechus avos. And Baruch Hashem, we have wonderful parents. I'm sorry. We understand very well that zechus avos is very central. We're not necessarily ra'ui to get the kind of brachas that we want to have for ourselves, but we depend on we depend on great people. We depend on people who came before us, and it's not just the zaydis and the bubis and the elta zaydis and the elta bubis. And Mitzvah Hashem, Baruch Hashem, we should have them and appreciate them and have tremendous chusim from them. But this goes all the way back to the avos, to the imahos. It's really very centrally important. But I make the point that in addition to zechus avos, there's something called bris avos. The Gemara says in Masechah Shabbos, Tama zechus avos. It's actually a striking Gemara. It's I think it's on Daf Nun Hey, Tama zechus avos. But Rabbeinu Tam, Tosfos quotes Rabbeinu Tam, that the bris avos still continues. So the bris avos is the covenant. The zechus is you give me a gift. The zechus. But bris, what's a bris? A bris is not a gift. A bris is a deal. A bris is a juridical relationship. We have a pact. We have a compact. We have a deal. That remains. And even if the lefnim mishuras hadin kind of appreciation for the zechus of our avos is somewhat attenuated, but the bris is there, and we constantly refer to that. And we depend on it, and we need it, and we invoke it over and over and over again in the Selichos.
Another big theme and comes up every day. You say the Selichos, and it's tziduk hadin. It's right. We say L'cha Hashem tzedakah v'lanu b'shes apanim. This is we're saying this again and again. So tziduk hadin is another one that you discussed.
Tziduk hadin is very important. We sometimes have trouble with tziduk hadin. Rav Soloveitchik on Tisha B'Av asked a very powerful question, because some of the kinnis we say on Tisha B'Av, especially at the beginning, that to begin with the word echa. Echa means how, why. What do you mean how or why? What do you mean how? We don't ask. We can't ask. We can't challenge the Rabbeinu Shalom. Vayida Amaro. We have to accept. Hatzur Tamim Polo Kichol Derachav Mishpat. Baruch Atah Hashem the Dayan HaEmes. Our way is being makabel the Gzeira of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And that is our way. And that is our way. So in case of Tisha B'Av, he said there's a special matir. He figures out only on Tisha B'Av you're allowed to do that. But otherwise not. Tziduk hadin means we have to accept. And we understand that, we can ask, but sometimes the answer is going to be no, and we have to accept it. And tziduk hadin there's a whole kino l'cha Hashem tzedakah, even in teshuvah l'cha Hashem tzedakah. And tziduk hadin is very important for us. We need to go into it knowing, not that kommt mir, not that ich bin wert, not that this is, after all, ich bin a shtickle gavra, so you know what, I deserve, I should have, I should get. You're coming b'dechilu u'rechimu l'fnei melech malchei lachem HaKadosh Baruch. And at the end of the day, Hatzur Tamim Polo. It's hard for us, very hard for us. Modern, Western, man, woman, ich bin koich v'etzim yadi, ich bin a shtickle balabas. But we have to bow our heads and accept the decree of the Ribono Shel Olam. And that's really important. If we go in to Selichos with the shtickle of humility, with the shtickle of understanding that we are ka'afra da'ara, l'fnei melech malchei amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem runs the world, and we need rachmei shamayim, then we're in the proper frame of mind to make the requests that are so centrally important to us, and hope that amidst Hashem, with the zechus avos, with the bris avos, the Ribono Shel Olam will respond favorably.
And that really goes right into the next one that you discussed, which is confession. Ashamnu, bagadnu, of the Vida Kutzer every day.
Right, Ashamnu bagadnu. So we have to understand Ashamnu bagadnu. We have to understand that at the end of the day, we have work to do. We have work to do. Rabbi Soloveitchik, very interesting, works at the Rambam at the beginning of Hilchos Teshuvah, where the Rambam says, Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph, K'sheyaseh teshuvah v'yoshev micheto chayav lehizvados. K'sheyaseh teshuvah v'yoshev micheto chayav lehizvados. So it doesn't seem like teshuvah itself is a mitzvah. It seems like vidui is a mitzvah. But then later on in the Rambam in Perek Zayin and in the Koteret, in the introduction to Hilchos Teshuvah, so what is teshuvah and what is vidui? So Rabbi Soloveitchik says that it's feidinim. Sometimes there is a kiyum hamitzvah, and sometimes there is a pu'ulas hamitzvah. Sometimes they overlap. If I take a lulav, I'm mekayim the mitzvah of arba minim. So taking the lulav is a maisa mitzvah, it's a pulas mitzvah, and the kiyum is to take a lulav. But there are times when the kiyum and the pu'ula are not the same. Like, for example, Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema, the pu'ula is say Shema Yisrael, but the kiyum is Kabbalah Somach Shamayim when it comes to davening. So I say words, but the kiyum is Avodah Shebelev. So the Rav said that applies also here. The kiyum hamitzvah is teshuvah, the pu'ula is the vidui. The act is the vidui, but the vidui is the frame for the inner. It's not just, you bang yourself till your chest hurts. You're not just saying words. You're not just davening it up. That's not what this is. This is an act in order to be ma'orer, the inner. To be ma'orer, the real kiyum is the inner. And so therefore the confession, the ashamnu, is very important, but I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that it's not just, that's not it. That doesn't do it. That's not what the Ribono Shel Olam wants, to bang ourselves. Ashamnu, bagadnu, understand what this is, understand we have work to do. But at the same time, understand we're not alone. Baruch Hashem, we have a Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim who are carrying us through, and Amir Hashem will be successful.
Yeah, and I'll skip ahead. You discuss also the Koach HaTeshuvah, the power of repentance, the power of teshuvah, what that can do. And this is the
power of teshuvah. I quoted 25 Mekayris in Chazal, the power of teshuvah. Teshuvah is the kiyum hamitzvah. And Chazal tell us over and over and over and over again the efficacy of teshuvah, the power of teshuvah, what teshuvah can do, and how we take it seriously. And Ribono Shel Olam is mekabel our teshuvah. The Ribono Shel Olam wants us to do our teshuvah. Im yashuv miyad tekabloi. But the yashuv needs to be sincere, needs to be heartfelt, and that's what we're banking on. It's like the Yud Gimel Midos. The Gemara says Hashem told us what to say. He gave us the script. Here's what you say, but I'll point out it's not here's what you say, here's what you do. But here's what you got to do. Here it is. And Hashem says, teshuvah, I'm telling you it's going to work. I'll meet you halfway. This is Aser Shemei Teshuvah, is the time Dirshu Hashem B'Himatzo. Hashem is closer to us during the Aser Shemei Teshuvah, the Rambam in the Hilchos Teshuvah and the Chazal. Elo Aser Shemei Teshuvah, when Hashem is closer to us. Hashem is open to hear from us, wants to hear from us, and will be supportive of the sincere penitent who comes before him with real feeling and sincerity.
So there's a couple other themes that you discussed that we'll leave, and even these, what we discussed, you discussed more in depth. So, like you said, those interested can buy the Selichos and
yes,
read.
Please do.
But I want to mention two other small ones. For one, already alluded to before, you discussed the derision of Christianity and the coming.
Yeah. This is not to be mazukt in 21st century. It's not politically correct here. This is tief tire. It's not just derision of Christianity, but it's revenge. We say shvei chamascha ala goyim in no uncertain terms. These Jews, Nebuch, were victims. These Jews had nothing nice to say about the goyim who were destroying them and who wanted to kill them and who did kill them and who did kill their spouses and their parents and their children, Rachmana litzlan. And so they lash out in absolute clear language. They make fun of Christianity. In fact, it's a shtickle problem because, some of it is censored out. If you want your life to continue, you can't, get on a megaphone and make fun of Christianity. It's not going to last too long. So sometimes it's more explicit. Sometimes it's less explicit. Sometimes it used to be more explicit. It became less explicit. And now it's machzir Torah leyoshna, and it's now more explicit again. But that is very clear here. And again, it's the same context. It's living in a world where Christianity is opposed and acts in such strong ways of persecuting the Jews that we ask the Rabbi Shalom, get rid of them. Just this, take nakama on them. This can't be. We are the Am HaNivchar. You can't let this happen. You can't let those who want to destroy us just fight on and go on and do whatever they want. And so they poke fun at Christianity, and they also ask for nakama. Very, very strong, very powerful, very important.
Yeah, there's something also, it's highlighted in your commentary as well, not only in the introduction, we'll mention the commentary in a minute, but one other thing is something that you discussed in the introduction that is, people are probably familiar, is the kind of halakhic issue. There's davening to angels, the intermediaries, famously Machnise Rachamim. So there's something else.
Yes. So I remember for a long time, I heard in the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik that he skipped Machnise Rachmim in the Selichos. I'm not saying that definitively. I'm saying that's what I heard. And it alerted me a long time ago to the problem of praying to intermediaries. The fifth dhikr of the Rambam is you have to pray dafka to the Rabbanu Shalom. You can't pray to intermediaries. Hashem is the only one who's the address of our tefillos. There's Yerushalmi and Brachos. I quote a number of sources that say that this is inappropriate. At the same time, however, the tefillah of Machnise Rachmim was established early in the times of the Goinim, and there are a lot of Rishonim who defend it. The Gemara says in Tainis that during a drought, we take the Sefer Torah to the center of the city, and we were mispalel to intermediaries to help us. So they're makaris about that as well. So this is a huge debate. It goes all the way into the 19th and even into the 20th century. And I present it here. Once again, you need to understand that in the 15th century, at some point later on, again, there's a Christian parsha here, because there was a particular opposition to this, because the Christians in whose midst the Jews live pray to saints. And so it sounded, it shmekta shtikala b'chukasem loiselechu. So it bothered them, not just on principle, all the Gemaras and the Rambam and the Yerushalmi, that only the Rabbeinu Shalom could be the recipient of our tefillos, but there was some polemical parsha going on at that time that also motivated significant opposition. And this remains a debate. There are people who say it, people who don't say it. And I spent a lot of time, there's a lot of pages trying to lay out both sides of this issue. And I think it's a fascinating issue. When we go to a kever, when we go to a parent's kever, it comes up again. Are we mispalel to our parents? Or are we asking our parents to help us with the Rabbeinu Shalom? I'm really being mispalel to the Rabbeinu Shalom, but I'm standing next to you because I hope that you'll help me, as opposed to being mispalel directly to them. So that's also a sensitivity that comes up more often, comes up all the time when people go to visit the Kvarim or visit Kivrei Tzadikim. Why am I going to the Kever of a Tzadik? I'm being mispalel to the Tzadik? Probably not appropriate. I'm mispalel to the Rabbeinu Shalom, but in the zechus of this Tzadik, who I'm standing next to, who I'm feeling now connected to, Rabbeinu Shalom, I'm asking you to please respond to my tefillos.
Also, being that we're both Philly Talmidim here, I don't recall offhand, so listeners can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Rosh Shmuel Kamenetsky in the Kovetz Halachos, I think maybe also says not to say Machnis Rachamim, but it could be. It's not like that, so I don't know. Just mentioning it.
I didn't have a chance to check that. It could be, and it makes sense because there was a monsoon of opposition during the time of the Rishonim and Achronim to saying this. But again, we need to be very respectful of tefillos and nicht azay avek machen. These are great Jews who established it, who are misakin it, and who said it. So yeah, you may come to a conclusion. You may follow those who don't say it, but it's b'dechilu u'rechimu if you're not going to say it. We need to treat this with the kodesh kadosh. However we land, we're going to land. But these are kodesh kadosh.
Okay, so like I said, there's a couple more things in the introduction we won't discuss. People can read it. Now, the commentary, so first of all, because you had just a lengthy introduction, at times, I noticed you do refer, readers, you say, go back to page so-and-so in the introduction where I discuss this more in depth.
Yes.
And also, just in general, maybe you want to mention a little bit more style of the commentary pass. You have some examples from the commentary part where you can, just point something out.
Yeah, so there are probably 500, 600 comments. So I don't want any of them to feel bad that I chose another one and I didn't choose them. So I'm chayshish for the COVID. But let me maybe choose something. I'll choose something from that I cite from the Satmar Rebbe. My sources here, I just want to give, take a moment to give credit. At the end of my introduction, I make reference to 5 or 6 different sfarim that I used as the springboard for my commentary. There are, Baruch Hashem, like Alman Yisrael, Kal Yisrael is blessed with a lot of Divrei Torah and sfarim. So I went to the library and I poked around. Actually, I want to thank the librarian at Yeshiva University, Tzvi Arenyi. When I started working on this, I wasn't allowed to go into the library of YU because of COVID. So I asked Tzvi, do me a favor, go to the Selichos section and go find the 15 Sfarim on Selichos. And he brought them down to the main desk where I was allowed to go. And I actually went all the way down to the first floor. I wasn't even allowed in the main desk. He met me outside in front of the library. And I worked on them. And a lot of them were extremely, extremely helpful. And it was an embarrassment of riches because they had so much. Every single line, every single phrase has Makaris and Medrash and Chazal and Vertlach. So I have a tremendous Akaras Hatov to that. And then also I used Sfarim in general that I came across. And I also quoted B'Shem Omro, a lot of Divrei Torah that I heard over the years. Some little bit of my own, mostly that I heard from others. I quote my late father, Zechorna Levracha, Rabbi Schacter, and others. And I also want to take a moment to thank Karen Meltz, who works for Koren, who really helped me bring this book to fruition, b'chein, b'chesed, b'rachamim, and with tremendous professionalism. So there's a whole team here that goes into this. And in terms of my own work, the makaros that I used were extremely important and very, very helpful to me. So I'll give an example from the Satmar Rebbe. The Satmar Rebbe, one of the Akinas talk about the fact that Nebuch, we don't have any great Gedolim anymore. Gomar, Chosid, the tzaddik, a nirpas. It's on page 26 in my commentary, and the Gemara says, it's a very famous Gemara, that there were certain bad guys who were living in the neighborhood of Reb Zera, and Reb Zera was makar of them in order to help them and inspire them to do teshuvah, but there were others who were opposed to Reb Zera, and when he died, these bad guys said that until now there was a Reb Zera who would pray for them, but now who is going to pray for them? Now it's up to them. And they were so motivated that they recognized that they themselves need to do teshuvah, and it was Huvra Davar L'Mafreya that Reb Zera was correct. And the Satmar Rebbe points out, Tzush telling this Gemara, that in the past there were great Gedolim that we could be Saimachan, and in whose chusim we hopefully were able to merit the brachas. But now, at the end of the day, it's us. At the end of the day, we can only depend on us, and we're the only ones who could rectify our wrongdoings and do things that we need to do. And it's ultimately it's our achrayas. In another commentary, I talk about the fact that the Baal HaSlicha says that what we really, any brachas that we get are not really deserved. It's all because of the Chazdei Hashem. We talk about L'chanan Amchina, Me'otzar HaMenutzar, page 47, that it's a chinam. It's not that sukumtuns, but Hashem's giving us a gift, and it's only a gift, and it's always a gift. And this is extremely important for us to recognize and to realize. I quote here, in the end of the 18th century, when the Jews in France were beginning to become emancipated, and there was a whole debate about giving them the vote and giving them citizenship. So a French Jewish leader in 1791 wrote, "Let it be acknowledged, dearest brethren, that we have not deserved this wonderful change by our repentance or by the reformation of our manners. We can attribute it nothing but the everlasting goodness of God." So here's another example, a more modern academic example, that this guy also acknowledged that the brachas that we get come from the Rabban Shalom, and that's important for us to realize. I'll give you one final example. There's a whole slicha number 44 that deals with the Korban Tamid. A whole, with the details based on the Mishnayos in Tamid, and I try to show where it's based, what it's based on. And here I quote the Hakdama of the Ein Yaakov, the Hakdama of the Ein, very famous passage. There's a three-way machlekes. What's the most important pasuk in the Torah? So one opinion says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Another one says V'yafta l'reacha kamocha. And then the third opinion is Esakeves Echad Taseh Baboiker, Esakeves Hasheni Taseh Beno Arbayim. And concludes the Ein Yaakov that's Oila al Kulam, the last one. And everybody wants to understand, which one of this is not like the other. I mean, Shema Yisrael, I understand Shema Yisrael. Ben Adam Lamakam, I understand V'afta l'reacha kamocha. And the point that I want to make here is that it's the consistency. It's every day. What's the most important thing about our religious lives? What's the most important thing about our Jewish lives? It's not that I go on vacation. Today I put on film, tomorrow I'm not going to put on film. Last week I lit Shabbos candles. This week I'm not going to light Shabbos candles. Yesterday I did this. Today I don't have to do it anymore. I'm going to take a break. Yesterday I learned Daf Yomi. Today I'm going to skip. The Korban Tamid. That is the most important. We don't leave it. It's every day. It's a commitment. It's ongoing. It's focused. And it's crucially and centrally important to us. And that's my Perush, in the Hakadama, my introductory comment to this slicha about the carbon tamid, at the end of the day, the Tamidus is so centrally important for us. Paskind, the In Yaakov is even more central than Shema Yisrael. It's even more central than V'yafta l'reacha kamocha. So these are the kinds of things I try to point out, bring a different perspective based many times on some of the Sfarim that I was able to benefit from, and sometimes from my own thinking, zugestelt ideas, things I heard, things that I came up with. And I thank Koren very much for giving me the opportunity to be Meirach, not just to write a 2 or 3 line episode, tiny ha'arala, but, and as I said, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little nervous because, some pages have the half is the Selichos and half is my commentary. I want people to say the Selichos, but I also want people to understand and to appreciate the Selichos.
One more thing that the commentary does, I don't think you mentioned, is that you do mention the historical background of the various Paitanim.
Yes, there are 2 things actually I do for each of the Selichos. Number one is I decided that I'm going to write a 3 or 4 line summary of the Selicha. So before every single Selicha, I have a shtickle, I summarize what are the main themes in this particular Selicha. So that's one thing I did. And the other thing I did was, as a shtickle historian, I felt that people should know who wrote this, and they should know who was his Rebbe, and when did he live, and what else did he write? And if you're interested in him, where you're going to go find more slichas and more liturgical poetry by him. So every single slicha begins with a little summary and also with a little shtickle biography of the mechaber. There are a number of slichas that have the same mechaber over and over and over again, so I just refer back to the first time that I mentioned that.
Okay, so first of all, I don't, as we finish here, just to take you away from the Selichos, which there will be a link in the show's notes for those interested in purchasing it, and it's available on Koren's website and in Sfarim stores. But just a general question, I don't think I can have you on Sfarim Chatter podcast and not ask you about the Megillah Sefer that everybody has to know. Where's your Megillah?
So Megillah Sefer, for the half of a listener of your audience who never heard of the Megillah Sefer, maybe a quarter of one person who never heard of the Megillah Sefer, because Fashtetzach, the Megillah Sefer is, probably the most important work, can you imagine? It's the autobiography of Rabbi Yaakov Emden. I've been working on it for 42 years. Bigamatria Vidibarta Bum. Bum is Bigamatria 42. So Baruch Hashem, I've had a couple of day jobs during that time, but Baruch Hashem, I finished. And I have a contract with Merkaz Shazar, an academic publishing company in Yerushalayim. Signed a contract, it's accepted, and the plan is in a little over a year for it to come out. So I used to tell people when they asked me, get back to me in a year and we'll see where we're holding. And you, Kedarkecha B'Kodesh, that's exactly what you just did, because the last time probably I wasn't holding exactly. But now, Mamish, Mahal Shem, Bamoishbayan, Vimazukt, by Oleinu, by the end. And I thank Merkaz Shazar for accepting it. I'm now working with a Hebrew editor to Pitzerun to make sure everything is in Hebrew. My Hebrew is not 100%. I worked with a translator, Kalman Newman, was extremely helpful for me to bring it ad hena zarunu rachamecha. And now Shazar appointed someone to bring it to the final level. And the Mitzvah Hashem, it should be coming out at some point, and I'll be happy, Reb Nachi, should you be so motivated to invite me to come back once it's out, and then you'll have a link, then I'll be happy to discuss it with you at that point.
Okay, Mirz Hashem, Bez Hashem, we look forward to seeing it. And one last thing, are there any future projects that you would work on the tefillah sphere, like what you just did here with the Selichos?
At this point, I'm not working on tefillah. My next project is a book I'm working on communal memory. Like, how does a society or a culture remember events that happened to it, in particular Jewish culture, and in particular sad events, tragic events. I taught a course at the Yeshiva University in the spring in graduate school on commemorating communal catastrophe, something I've been thinking about for a very, very long time. How does a culture choose to remember? And I'm going to be focusing from the Churbanos. It's an outgrowth of all of my teshuvah avoda, and through the Shoah. That's my next book project. And also I have to finish with Koren. This is only Lita. The next one that will Mitzvah Shem come out next year is Anglia. And then they're also interested in Poland. So they're nafkaminas. There are about 70% overlap between the Lita and the Anglia. So there are about 25 Selichos that are in Anglia, not in Lita. So I already wrote commentaries for them. And that's the next Selichos related project. And then I think they're interested when we're done with Anglia, which is not a pasha thing because they need to get somebody to translate the spelling into English spelling, Honour. There's a whole mahalach in how to spell English in England. So they need to work through that very carefully. I need to finish my commentaries. And also even in my introduction, Voltman gemeint that it's a Gzeira Shava, the same themes. But in my introduction, as you point out, I often make reference to, for more on this, see Slicha number this, but it's not mukhrach that in the Anglia, it's going to have the same number, or it's even going to be in there. So that needs a shtikala avoda as well. So Baruch Hashem, I should be zechus for Arichas Yamim, and there's what to do, as you know, you are Baruch Hashem extremely productive and prolific, extremely popular. A lot of people listen to you, they're samech on you for all kinds of wisdom and advice. So you also have Baruch Hashem, you're a young man, you have a whole life ahead of you. The Rebbeinu Shalom should give you kayach and strength and wisdom to continue your wonderful and important work.
Amen. So thank you for the kind words, and
pleasure.
Thank you once again for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and continued atzlacha and nahalchain. I want to wish you a good gebencht yor. You should have wonderful shefa brachas for a wonderful year.
And to all the listeners, also good gebencht yor, ksiva chasim v'toiva.